Hello everyone, welcome to MJ Hobby Corner. I'm Martin. Today I want to give a little bit of an update what's going on in my Patreon. I started the first mini campaign of the year, and this is an experiment of sorts that I'm doing. I'm adding a handmade map to my game, and there's something of a map phase going on with some house rules. And well, in this video I describe some of those things. Now, this is not a full game. You won't be seeing the full game. That's on my Patreon for anyone interested. And I would like to thank all of my patrons and all of my supporters of the magazine Scratch Builder Monthly. One of the things that's important is that in these updates, and there will be more in the future, you will see all the scratch built terrain that occurs in the magazine. So all those tutorials and all those things in the magazine, that's where it culminates on my tabletop. So that's important to mention. So thank you to all supporters of Scratch Builder Monthly. January issue is already on my Patreon shop and on Wargames Vault. Speaking of which, I opened up 2 new tiers in Patreon, and one of them is dedicated to solo role-playing, and I will be playing For Against Darkness. And then I have a final tier that combines miniature wargaming and solo role-playing. So they kind of get both the videos. And I'm happy to say that in this game, our very own Valkyrie, Julie, actually did the narrative for the beginning of the game. So that was really cool. That's what we're going to see next.
The Minotaur king Asterion sits on the throne of Kronos. Kronos is the ancestral home of the Minotaurs and their tribal allies, collectively known as the Hooved clan. Meanwhile, the Northkin, a collective of humans, Yeti, and ice elves, have been spreading into the Iron Mountains from the lower valley of Frostvale. Northkin camps now dot the territories bordering Kronos. Because of this, Asterion has made the decision to eliminate the Northkin threat. Asterion accuses these peoples of delving in dangerous magic and desecrating holy ground. Asterion appoints his son Taurus Ironmane to deal with this threat. Taurus is ordered to assemble his warbands, raid the enemy camps, and claim the territory. This will effectively extend Kronos' territory well into the region known as the Crystal Peaks. All territories conquered will fall under Taurus' rule. Asterion has good reason to keep his son occupied and away, for Taurus is soon to challenge his father in a death match for the great throne.
So after that cool little narrative that Julie provided for me, then we jump into the map phase of the game. Now, the important thing to note about this game is that it is, one, a solo war game, and this first campaign experiment comes after a discussion that I had on my Patreon about maps and how I use maps for various things and in various games. So this is kind of a little experiment that I have. Now, maps can be used in a ton of different ways. This is not the only way, the way that I'm presenting. This was just one little experiment and just to see how it goes and to get an interesting game going. So the next thing we'll see is the map phase as I presented it in the actual game. Taurus's forces are located at the bottom of the map. This is the boundary of Kronos. This entire region here is called Kronos. The red gems represent the defenses on each of these territories, and the yellow gem represents Taurus and his own warband. So that's going to be my primary warband that will more than likely do all the traveling. These gems here will stay on their territories. They are the ones that will meet any incoming enemy incursions. The Northkin are camped all around the northern stretches of this territory, right along the north spine of the Iron Peaks chain. There is also a camp down here by a river system right beneath the Whispering Mountain chain. And we have the Crystal Peaks, which is a very important region for the campaign, since Taurus will be looking to conquer that region. Taurus and his warband are camped in the Avangard Forest territory. He sends his scout Vale, a female faun who's skilled in mountaineering and snow walk. She moves forward to keep an eye on any enemy movements. So the next thing is to actually roll for initiative, and initiative is only rolled in the map phase, not in the game of A Song of Blades and Heroes. I'm using actually components of the two rule sets. Advanced Song of Blades and Heroes is my primary rule set, all my rules of engagement and everything, and then a few of the tables come from the campaign book for the previous edition, A Song of Blades and Heroes, which I still find to be very compatible with the newer edition of the game. The white die will represent the Hoofd clan, and the black die will represent the Northkin, governed by the AI. And we see that the Northkin make the first move. Next, I roll a d6 to identify which region of Kronos will be attacked by the Northkin. And I rolled a 1. A Northkin warband suddenly advances towards the Iron Peaks. They cross the boundary, in which case spies coming out of the Iron Peaks and scouts reveal the incoming warband. They make it to the Iron Peaks, and now a battle will be triggered with the defending force. So let's see what that defending force is. Let's identify it. Meanwhile, in the adjacent side of the Great Ridge, we have Taurus and his warband preparing to move forward as well. I rolled 2d6 and added up, and that is a 4-5. The resulting scenario is 5 on difficult ground, which makes sense considering the territory that's being attacked. All right, let's set up the board and begin the scenario. So the next part is interesting because I had to decide whether or not Taurus and his warband, which is kind of the command of the army, if he was going to fight, or if one of his smaller warbands were going to take on the defense. I decided that Taurus would stay in his territory and that it would be one of his war chiefs on the left flank that would defend the territory of the Iron Peaks. So there are 3 territories on each side, as I described earlier, and each of these will have a couple of small warbands defending it, and then we have the 2 main warbands, which will eventually have to meet and fight. So that's kind of the way I set it up, and now I have all the miniatures in a special little tray that organizes them, all the miniatures I need for the campaign. If I need some extra ones, I put them in, but all the miniatures I need are already in that little tray, and that's what I use to set up the little warbands. So each region on the map, each territory has its own little list of terrain possibilities for it. So in order to set up on the table, I use a random system of cards in order to determine where the terrain will be placed. So the Iron Peaks, if I come back to it, can be set up differently. And all of this stuff, I have some diagrams and pictures that I drew for myself just to note where on the mountain each of these regions is. So we have like boreal regions that are more forests, like pine forests. Then we have higher elevations that are more like rocky and snowy and can have all kinds of dangerous terrain associated with them, including caverns. So you can lead into a cavern game from this kind of system as well. So it's interesting. It allows me to choose, have a little bit of choice in the terrain, but the setup of the table is more random. And so rather than rolling, like you can split up the table into quarters or whatever it is, I chose this card method. And it's based on an actual historical war game that uses a similar kind of setup. Once my stone has been set, let's put some vegetation. So 8, we begin placing vegetation. So to give a little bit more randomness to terrain setup, I simply roll a d8 and then match whatever number to the cards that were placed in each section of the table. So the middle section has 2 cards. It has an ace and a 2, and that simply means roll 1 through 2. That's where the terrain would be placed. The enemy warband is composed of an ice troll leader, our very first personality. We have a Northkin warrior with spear and shield. We also have a Yeti, so a Yeti warrior, and an ice elf mage with his trident. All right, and now the mage is also considered a personality. The defending warband representing Taurus. We have 2 fawns in the front. They are armed with melee weapons. And then we have goatmen. The entire warband is made up of goatmen. We have 1 leader, which is the dual wielding figure there in the center. And he is a personality as well. So any loot or anything recovered by this warband will remain in the territory, and anytime that Taurus Ironmane and his own warband come into this territory, they will have access to all that loot, including any trophies that are gained. The only difference is that personality trophies demanded by Taurus's father need to be killed by Taurus himself. Victory conditions are pretty straightforward. If a warband's completely eliminated, then victory is achieved. If a warband has 1 figure and it is outnumbered by at least 2 or more enemy figures, then that figure will retreat from the board without even rolling morale. Now, as for me, I always have the option to retreat if I have overwhelming odds in front of me. That is, I can always decide to exit the closest table edge whenever I think I need to. So it's not just a fight to the death. I can retreat if I want to, but then I do not get the campaign point, and I do not get any loot or anything of that sort. The battle for the Iron Peaks begins with the defenders deployed here, right in this little ravine area. And then going over here, we have the enemy with the Yeti. We have the leader, the Ice Troll leader, and the Northkin warrior, and then the Ice Elf mage right there by the shrubs. All right. Because the enemy won initiative in the map phase, they are the attackers and get to move first. Kartuk's warband now moves forward. Kartuk himself will begin. He has quality 3, so he rolls 2 dice to activate. He rolls 2 6s and has no problem moving through the snow thanks to Snow Walk. So he moves forward a medium move. Kartuk sees the magic user and will move forward another medium stick. Unfortunately, there is a warrior behind the rock that he cannot see. So he moves forward and will be surprised by that warrior right to his left there. Just going to correct a quick mistake. He can move to the end of the base. So he's going to move more. He's going to move about a base width closer to the wizard. So there we go. One of the goat folk heavy infantry will move. I give him 2 dice for activation. I can have up to 3. He has 1 failure, 1 success. He was quality 3. So 1 failure, 1 success. That 1 failure means a reaction for the enemy, which has to come first. In Advanced Song of Blades and Heroes, when your opponent rolls 2 failures, you have the option of taking 2 reactions and rolling for each of those reactions, or actually take a turnover. So the turn will end for the opponent and you take the turn. In solo games, my house rule is that, well, with 2 failures, turnover happens automatically. As a default, in solo play, enemy models get 2 actions. So rolling, the Northkin Warrior has quality 3, and he gets 1 success, 1 failure. Kartuk can react, and he has to roll for that reaction. He rolls a 6, being quality 3. He immediately reacts to the warrior, turns to him, and uses that action to charge him in combat. The highlight of the game is when the Goatman War Chief actually cleaves one of the Northkin warriors, and it is a gruesome kill, so it causes the enemy shaman to run away. Since this was a gruesome kill, the wizard, who has seen the gruesome kill and is within a long stick of the kill, must make a morale check, and we take 3 dice, and he rolls a quality. Each success is 1 movement towards the closest table edge of the area. Oh ho ho! The ice elf's eyes widen, and he quickly moves out of the area. The ice troll, not having enough actions to actually attack, has moved forward and is sizing Kartuk up cautiously. I'm giving the first fawn and 2 actions, so he rolls his dice. He is quality 4. Yeah, quality 4. He rolls a 4 and a 3. However, the Yeti has reacted already. So the ice troll takes the reaction instead of the Yeti, and he moves into combat with the Goatman. And just check the rolls. You can go into combat with a figure without having to attack. Unfortunately, I did discover a mistake that I was doing in the primary rules with regard to combat, how you determine gruesome kills and all that stuff. So I had to correct that right away. I reported it to my viewers, and then just kept moving, just keep going, and it was a pretty enjoyable game. And the ice troll attacks the Goatman War Chief. He adds +1 because he is large, so he is adding a 5 to his total roll. He rolls a 6 and a 5, that is an 11, and so the Goatman War Chief, he adds a 4 to his roll. He only rolls a 3. 6 plus 5 is 11. 4 plus 3 is 7. So no, they're not double. The troll's roll was an even number, and so Goatman is knocked prone. Okay, yikes. All right, that is that. So on the left flank of the battlefield, my fawns are struggling with this one Yeti. He already smashed one of my Goatman warriors, and now the fawn, one of the fawn, is next. So the shield is smashed with the blow. So the fawn this time is knocked out legally and by the rules. Okay, yikes. That ends the enemy turn. As always, at the end of the game, I like giving a little bit of narrative to kind of tie everything up. And here, the miniature that I am using to represent Gedrick, the strange Minotaur, or Minotaur with the strange horns, informs Taurus of the attack on his left flank. This game also has some post-game steps. Looting enemy figures is a part of that, and a few other things that occur, and then it's back to the map to do some planning for the next game. So that pretty much summarized the game and the map phase that I played with this game. It's all house ruled. And to give some context to this update, the actual mini campaign, which is only going to be like 4 games long, 4 or 5 games long for the rest of this month, however many games I can squeeze in for this month of January. But basically, it follows up a discussion, a map discussion that I had on my Patreon. And so this is the examples that I came up with to kind of highlight everything I discussed in the map video. So I always believe that actually playing the game is the best way to show whatever house rule ideas I have, or you know, whatever it is, to actually play the game. And in this experiment, I'm also correcting things and maybe adding or tweaking things as I go along, and my patrons know this. So it's going to be an interesting experiment, I think. As always, I want to thank all of my YouTube supporters. Thank you for being with us all this time, all these years. For those of you that have been with the channel for a long time, I also want to thank all my Patreon supporters. I will be working a lot more with my Patreon supporters this year. And also for all of you guys that support the magazine, Scratch Builder Monthly. January issue is already out. And if you notice, in these updates that I will be providing for these mini campaigns, all of the terrain that you've seen in the magazine that I've talked about show up here. And that's a big thing too. How I employ all of that low budget, simple terrain that I make throughout the years, how I employ it in these kinds of map-based campaigns. So that's another big topic here. And I will have more discussions on my Patreon on maps, and there will be future games with different systems that involve maps. Okay, mini campaigns. I'm only concentrating on mini campaigns and a few one-shot games as well. All right, folks, thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed this Battlefield snapshot. It's a little bit longer than usual, but I really needed to describe things so that viewers on my YouTube had at least an idea of what I'm trying to show. So thank you very much, and I'll see you in the next update. Have a great one. Talk soon.